Hello, I'm Mystic Orange and this is video hashtag 695. In this video, I want to continue back to my Winx Club rewrite. I know what you are thinking, it's been so long. The last episode was uploaded 7 months ago, 5th of May to be exact. Right now as I'm recording this video, it's 19th of December, so you can imagine how long this video has been. That's because, between those days, I didn't feel like, going back. I didn't want to, make this rewrite be a chore, which I do kept saying in my videos, in my rewrites. You could say I've been procrastinating over this, because, I did kind of burn out a bit. But now I can bounce back to my rewrites again. I will try to put the link of the rewrites in the description down below, just in case you are curious of my previous episodes. Anyway, let's get this episode started. Season 1, Episode 6. The Skills of Magix Capital City. For this episode title, I did think a lot about it. So episode 6 is a continuation from the previous episodes. So it's a continuation from episode 5 as well as episode 4 as well. So you got to watch those episodes if you want to watch this one to get the idea. So for this episode, I want to touch upon the skills of Magix Capital City. Not only do the students get this explanation, but the audience obviously gets the explanation. So that kind of explains the title of this episode. I was going to call it The Geography of Magix Capital City, but I scrapped that idea. Not only the previous episode is called The Geography of Magix, but this episode is less about the geography and is more about the skills, at least specifically. Also, before we continue, I want to make some corrections from my last episode. For episode 5, I kept, using the she/her pronouns for Professor Ripley. In episode 4, I explained that Professor Ripley is a male, so I should have used the he/him pronouns. Anyway, let's continue. So for this episode, it's going to be the 7th of September. The last episode was the 6th of September. So obviously, in terms of the date, this is a continuation from the last episode. Episode 40, the current episode, feels like a whole arc. We could call this the world building arc. Also, not to forget that for this year of this episode is 2011. So if this is the 7th of September 2011, that means it's Wednesday for this day. The last episode was Tuesday. Okay, I think for this start of this episode, we need to set the scene. So remember, it's Wednesday. So this temporary lesson of the School of Magix Capital City, where obviously the students of Year 7 are going to learn about. This will happen after lunch, so at 1 p.m. So I kind of want to make that clear. It's replacing one of the lessons. Just for temporary, it's just for this day. Of course, not only the students get to learn about the world building, but obviously the audience get to learn about the world building. Also, you could say this is Geography of Magix. And of course, because of this, Professor Ripley is, doing this lesson again. Professor Ripley sure should get a bonus for doing extra work. Okay, since we established that information, let's talk about the start of this episode. So we could say for the start of the episode is the afternoon. It's nearly towards the end of the lunch hour. So I guess we get our first scene in the cafeteria. And I feel like I need to explain the layout of the cafeteria. I think the cafeteria needs to be big and spacious. It should be a simple layout. You have lunch ladies serving food. You have a vending machine. You have snack machines. You got cold food, hot food, desserts, drinks. It's all for the students. While this isn't a strict rule, the your servers mainly sit towards the middle. So this is where you get to see your main characters, Bloom, Stella, whatever. Um, so they are there. This is probably where they would like to hang out. Towards the left side of the cafeteria, you have your 8s and your 10s, and towards the right, you probably have your 9s and your 11s. But like I said, it's not a strict rule, it's just an idea how where they would sit. So we will get a pan shot towards Bloom and her friends sitting in their table. Like on her table, we have Bloom, Stella, Misa, Techna, Flora, as well as Eleanor and Veranda. Like I said, for the students, they're nearly finishing their food. If you're curious of what the students had for their lunch, Bloom had a cheese and onion sandwich, Stella had a tuna sandwich, Musa had sushi, Techna had a cheesy pasta, Flora had a Mexican bean burrito, which is vegan, Eleanor had a chicken Caesar salad burrito, and Veranda had a cheese and tomato pasta. So they're about to finish up their food and head over to the assembly hall where they're gonna get taught about the schools of Magic's capital city. So during the cafeteria lunch hour near towards the end, the girls are having small talk. There's nothing deep in here, which is totally fine. That's kind of typical for if you're having a lunch hour. So anyway, the lunch is over. They hear the bell ring. It's time for the year 7 to get up and get going. They all head towards the assembly hall. They sit themselves down in the assembly hall. They wait for Professor Ripley to get over here so he can start his presentation. Also, I want to point out, since this is another temporary occasion, we're currently not having the weaponry lesson right now for this episode. This would have been a normal occasion if it was Wednesday. So that means Professor Hephaestus could sit this one out. I mean, good for him, he can have a day off. So while the students are sitting in their seats, Professor Ripley guides them towards the presentation board. Okay, let's play a game of pretend. You, as the audience, can pretend to be the students, and me, as a speaker, can pretend to be Professor Ripley. So just like the last episode, Professor Ripley is going to explain the skills of Magic's capital city towards the students, and arguably that's just me explaining it to you guys. So I think for the start of this presentation, I think it's best for Professor Ripley to give an explanation about the planet of Magix first, just briefly. Of course, in the last episode, we gave out, in-depth information about the planet. But we're just giving you like a brief explanation here, so just so like you understand, where they are right now, where the schools are. I think it's really important to clear that up first. So I guess this is just an easy explanation. Magix is a planet of sci-fi and fantasy, just like the original Magix from Winx Club. Also to remind you guys that Magix has 9 regions. I'm not gonna go in depth in all of them because that's the point of the last episode. But I will state that the 9th region is Magic's capital. So this is the region where they are based and where the school are based. It's geographically equivalent to the UK in Earth. But just imagine UK being below Europe and above Africa. That's just to give you the picture where you think the 9th region is. So obviously in this episode, we're solely focusing on the 9th region, which is obviously, like I said, is called Magic's capital. I think I explained it in my last episode, but I'll try to explain it again here. So the name of the ninth region is Magic's capital, and the name was inspired by the Hunger Games. If you don't know, the country of the Hunger Game is called Panem, and at the heart of Panem, the capital city is called Capital. It is spelled with an O, Capitol, Magic's capital. And just like many regions are like in Earth or wherever you have cities, obviously these regions are going to have cities. And for the ninth region, we have a capital city, and it's called Magic's capital city. That's what I called it. It's kind of equivalent to capital cities in Earth, like London, Paris, Rome, Madrid. So that's kind of the idea of where they are based. That's where the most popular schools are based. That's where the popular city of Magic's capital is. So that's what we're talking about. And I think I want to have Magic's capital city being at the center of Magic's capital, showing that, it's the heart of this region. I think being in the middle makes this city being important. Like you can tell that this is our capital area, this is an important area of this region. And I think it's time to explain the skills of Magic's capital city. Those are the most popular skills. But it's not the only skills. Has to be realistic. We have skills in every location. But, this is like a secondary skill. So we are talking about those. And for the Magic's capital city is kind of big. It's a capital city. So it's going to be big like London is. Like, of course, you got buildings, you got trees, you got places like, the bank, the airport, shopping centers. Just imagine a city and it has all that. And I think I'm going to talk about the schools in sections. We got the center point, we got like north, east, west, south. So yeah. Okay, I think I'll start off by talking about the center of Magic's capital city. As you can imagine, it's kind of like a city center. Just imagine any capital locations at the center. You got banks, you got things like that. You got city halls, you got buses, transportations. You can imagine that. So, with the center of Magic's capital city, it's not really known for the secondary schools, but we do have the most popular primary school in the center. And that primary school is none other than Magic's primary school. I think you've heard me mention about the school a couple of times in my previous episodes. This is the school that Stella went during her primary school. It's where she blew up the potion lab just to create a new shade of pink. I think to me that would make sense for Stella to do. And based off, because she's in primary school, I think it would make sense that she would, blow up the potion lab just to make a new shade of pink. Let's be honest, she was a kid back then. She wouldn't know that you can't make a new shade of a color. Also, this is just a theory, but you can take it however you want it. This is a primary school, right? And I imagine, the lesson that Stella took, but the lesson was probably like an art-based subject. And obviously, it's in Magix, so, it's kind of tailored towards this planet and how it is. Like, art in the Earth isn't the same as art in Magix, so maybe they apply Magix with the art. And with our earthly knowledge, you can imagine what she was trying to do. And I'm kind of imagining how the lesson is going. Because, I think, during primary school or elementary school, during your art lessons, you probably had to learn about how to make a new shade of color. Like you had to learn about primary colors, secondary colors. Like you can't make a new shade of red, yellow, or blue, but you can, mix colors to make colors like green, orange, and purple. And that's what I can imagine what Stella was trying to do. That's just kind of my logic of what would have happened in her situation. Honestly, you can apply this logic to the actual original show as well. Also, in the primary school, you can be any race. You can be a fairy, witch, you can be a ranger, you can be a mermaid. Because the main focus of primary school is to focus on like learning the basics. Like at the end of the day, like the students of primary school are just kids who are much younger than us. They're probably like the ages of 3 to 11, and they're going from the nursery to year 6. Now let's talk about the secondary school. They are most likely to be placed in the axes of Magic's capital city. So you got west, north, east, south. I'm mainly going to talk about the schools that are on those axes. Axis, alignment, whatever you call them, directions. That's what I'm going to talk about. Note that I'm talking about the skills, so don't just think like, oh, when I'm start talking about an area, that's what those just things are, because we have to be realistic. There are other things in those areas too, like buildings and trees. Just imagine a normal city, and I think I'm gonna go clockwise from starting from the west, then north, east, and then south. So that's the order of how I'm gonna talk about each area and the skills that are in those areas. Okay, we'll start off talking about the west side of Magic's capital city. So this secondary school is a bit more further out. And something to know about the west side of Magic's capital city, we have the famous Lake Rocaluce. It's probably the most popular lake in Magic's capital. But of course, there are many other lakes in Magic's capital, just like any other lakes are. Also, with Lake Rocaluce, I think we're going to have underwater cities and, underwater buildings, underwater life, underwater trees, or other things. Remember, like, Magix is like a mix of fantasy and sci-fi. So of course we're going to have like civilization in Lake Rocaluce. And this kind of brings my idea of how I'm gonna place the more aquatic races of secondary school. I guess you could say the area is more located to the more aquatic beings. And one of the secondary schools that I would say that's located in Lake Rocaluce is Mermaid Magic School. So obviously in this secondary school we have mermaids. I also think what I find cool about the mermaids in the Winx universe to other mermaids is that for the mermaids in Winx universe have wings, so that kind of differentiates between other mermaids and other media. So that's kind of a fun fact about mermaids. And also with the mermaids, the collective term is merfolk, so that's the most gender neutral of the terminology, and you can be a male, female, non-binary, any ages, any types. In this rewrite, we're being inclusive. Also, speaking about the location of Mermaid Magic School, it's mostly going to be located in the more center of the Lake Rocaluce, and it's the most deep of the schools of the Lake Rocaluce. So that's the idea of Mermaid Magic School. Okay, let's continue with the western side. The second school we have is Selkie's Secondary School. The school is mostly located towards the coastal side of the lake. It's mostly on the eastern side of the lake. Not only is it on the east, but it's also shallow end of the lake. So you could say the school is most closer to the Magix capital city, the city center, at least geographically speaking. And the fact about the school is very tiny. Also, the school is located in this one area in the lake called Selkie Village. This is where most of the Selkies would probably be. So, what are Selkies anyway? Selkies are basically, small sized mermaids. Kind of like a mermaid equivalent to pixies. So pixies are basically small sized fairies, and selkies are just like small sized mermaids. And you can have selkies of different genders, whether they're male, female, non-binary. You can have them in any race as well, any sexuality, similar to mermaids. Okay, we talked about the west. Let's move towards the north and talk about the fourth secondary school. So the fourth secondary school is Cloud Tower Witch School. As the name suggests, it's a school of witches. So Cloud Tower Witch School is like obviously in the north, but then it's much more closer towards the center, like towards the magic capital city center. Uh, you know, it definitely gives a witchy gothic vibe, obviously in a modern setting. So witches of Cloud Tower practice dark arts, and they kind of practice like unconventional ways of using magic. I mean, some witches may use the traditional terms of being a witch, like brooms and cauldrons and potions, but that's the traditional things. But like we are modernized witches, obviously that doesn't stick around as for the modern ones. There are witches who prefer the traditional methods, and there are witches who prefer the modern methods. It's really up to them. And similar to the other races, we have witches of all identities. We have male witches, female witches, non-binary witches, and witches of all races. And also, not all witches are good or evil. There's no morality for there's no an evil witch. Anyone can be evil. Anyone can be good. It's not only inclusive to witches. Sometimes you might have a fairy that's evil, or you might have a witch that is good. Yeah, that needs to be established. I also want to give you a side note. I haven't fully watched the reboot, but I have heard rumors about the writers still hate witches, which I do think it sucks. A genius Straffy can do one for that. Okay, much more further towards the north, towards the west side, not too further away, but further away from Cloud Tower, which school. So that will be Monster High School. Sorry, I kind of explained that really poorly, but yeah. So, Northwest, that's Monster High School, but further away from Cloud Tower High School, but not too further away. And guess what? I think you just heard that. Monster High School. And I'm kind of bringing new aspects to the show in my Winx Club rewrite. I think you noticed in my previous episodes that I like to reference, other shows and media. For example, I would have Shrek being the troll, or the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles pretending to be the ghouls. But I think this is I think a reasonable thing to add to Winx Club. I'm going to have Monster High be one of the schools in Magic's capital city. And yes, it's going to be one of the popular ones, like I said. And I feel like this would be fitting to other races in Winx Club. So, like the more darker ones that you would think, like vampires, Frankensteins, werewolves, mummies, zombies, skeletons, ghosts, yetis, or whatever. Just imagine Monster High being in Winx Club. I think that's totally perfect for Winx Club. Sidetrack, like if Winx Club and Monster High coexist, I think it will be totally perfect. But I also like I said about the witches, like the characters of Monster High are all good. I mean, you can have good Monster High characters. You can have evil Monster High characters. There's no like everyone's unique. Like it's not black and white here. And just like every school, we have male characters, female characters, non-binary characters. We're going to be inclusive. Then we can head towards the northeast side of Magic's capital city. Like if the center point is in the middle, we're heading towards the northeast. It's further away from Cloud Tower, and I think it's like similar alignment to Monster High School. So in this area, we have the sixth school, and we call it Hogwarts Wizard School. And yes, we're referencing Harry Potter here. So, although one thing that's different about Harry Potter style of wizards, we got all kinds of wizards. We got magicians, sorcerers, all of those things. Basically, you know what Naboo is? Or sometimes sages like Maya. You remember Maya from season 3? I think she would fit this archetype and her kind of people. So basically, those kind of races or whether they belong in this school, this is where they will go for their, education. And just like I said before, from other schools, like the characters are, male, female, non-binary. They can be good or evil. Like it really doesn't matter. I feel like a broken record by now. So anyway, that's the sixth school. And if we moved way further out of the north, it's the most furthest of the north, and actually the most furthest of them all from the center point. We have like mountainous regions, and I think this kind of area will be fitting for these set of people. And also, if you remember in Winx Club, in Magix, we do get to, visit mountain areas, so maybe that could explain it that kind of a bit. So this is where the more brutish kind of beings will be, set, and this is where the schools will be. So you're gonna have creatures like giants, monsters, ogres, trolls, cyclops, titans, the more larger built beings. This is where they're gonna be based on their skills, and actually, I think it fits. If you're gonna have like a more larger race characters, you might as well have a civilization just for them because they're very huge and they're gonna take up a lot of space. Especially considering you have giants, which I think they are probably way large. Okay, so we talked about the west, the north. Let's move towards the east. And I guess the eighth skill we're going to talk about is called Red Fountain Ranger Skill. And this is located closer towards the city center. And my plan in this rewrite, I wanted to change the specialist title. So, in the original show, we have the specialist, but I'm gonna call them rangers, since basically that is what they really are. And I think rangers suits them better than specialists. When I think of the word specialist, I think like a technical person who fixes computers. I don't think of like fighting type people. And they're basically what they are, rangers. Like I'm thinking of Power Rangers with weapons, gadgets, techno magic. And of course, this is like Winxified. The Rangers are going to have like sci-fi elements to them. When I think of like, these Rangers, I think of of course, the Power Rangers, but other franchise like the Star Wars. I think in Star Wars they're called Jedi's. And of course, with these rangers, we're going to have diversity in their genders as well. Like they're not all going to be boys. We have, male rangers, female rangers, non-binary rangers. Anyway, let's talk about the ninth skill. So this skill is much more further away from Red Fountain Ranger skill, and it's called Golden Paladin skill. So this is basically the characters like Nex and Sorrow would be, because they are paladins. I'm honestly not sure what paladins are. I don't think the show, really established what the difference is between paladins and set specialists. They seem to be just recolored specialists. So in my universe, I think I'm gonna have like with the paladins, they kind of resemble angels. So um, I will talk about the angel skill afterwards. But what paladins are, they're basically kind of merging both rangers and angels. Basically, like how specialists use weapons, gadgets, techno magic. They don't have wings. But paladins do have wings. But their wings are a bit more angel-like. So basically, they're just flying rangers. Anyway, as we move forward to Golden Paladin Skill and head towards the north side, not east and north, we have another area, and this area is called a Smurf Village, and yes, that's a reference to the Smurfs. So what we're gonna have is this area being dedicated to like Smurfs, but this isn't just Smurfs. Like, in this skill, they have in Smurf Village is called Smurf Village Skill, and this is a skill for like Smurfs, dwarves, leprechauns, goblins, gremlins, gnomes. So basically, are the shorter type of beings. They are going to be based on that area. It's kind of like the short version of Vale Beast School and the mountainous region with the giants and the bigger type of people. This is basically short people. I think as a collective, they can have the area here and their skills and everything else. And now for the next skill that's in the east side. It's further away from Golden Paladin skill. However, it's more in the south side. And this school is called Elf Community School, and this school is dedicated to elves everywhere. I mean, elves are known for their pointy ears and their magical properties. Like, Palladium is an example of an elf. So, like, someone like him would have been in the school. So, that's kind of the 11th school. Okay, so we talked about the west, the north, and the east. And now let's talk about the final axis of Magic's capital city, which is the south. This is the axis that the Winx are in right now. And the first of these schools that we're going to talk about is Althea Fairy School, which is basically the school that the Winx are in. So Althea Fairy School is closer to the center point. I mean, in this rewrite, I've talked in depth about Althea Fairy School, like kind of like especially throughout this like arc. I think I touched upon it on the second and third episode, but I talked deeply about it in like episode 4, 5, and currently this episode. But to give you the brief explanation, this school is dedicated to fairies. I mean, there's not much else I can add here. If you want like in-depth, information about Althea, just go watch my previous episodes. I think at the end of the day, I think it's a really smart idea that I included this episode here because not only do the Winx and the other characters know where they are right now within the show, but we as the audience know where they are and where they are based right now. Anyway, let's talk about the next skill. And this skill is called Jannah Angel Skill. And this skill is located, further away from Althea Fairy Skill, but more towards the east side. And this skill is for angels. I think this is a fitting location for this skill about angels. Not only is like closer towards Althea Fairy School, but it is also closer to Red Fountain Ranger School and Golden Paladin School, which kind of aligns with the theme. Obviously not too close, but close enough that they are connected with each other. And note that I called it Jannah Angel School. In Arabic, Jannah means heaven, so that's kind of the inspiration of that name. Note that, there's no special connection to heaven. It's just the name I gave to the school. And I guess from the Winx Club, an example of an angel will be Professor Avalon. So basically, his type of being would have been like, educated in this school. And now let's talk about the last place in, this area. And probably the last school we're going to talk about in this episode. So this area that I'm going to talk about is called Pixie Village. Yeah, I'm talking about Pixie Village. The place for pixies. So I want Pixie Village being towards the south, but further away from Althea, but towards the west. So you know how Jannah Angel School is towards the east? I'm gonna have Pixie Village being towards the west. As you know, pixies are small-sized fairies, kind of like how selkies are small-sized mermaids. And this village is all about pixies, and the school that's in Pixie Village is called a Hollow Pixie School. This is the school for where pixies go. And I think I like where I placed Pixie Village because it's kind of closer towards Selkie's secondary school. And again, it's not exactly close, but close enough where it's kind of aligned. I think, that's really smart of me doing this. Just like how, Jannah Angel School is, perfectly placed. I think I like that, Pixie Village is perfectly placed. Like, you got Selkie Village up that way, and then you got Pixie Village down that way. Anyways, there you have it. That's probably the last school and the area in this um, place I wanted to talk about. Ultimately, I just wanted to talk about those things. Like some places I've given expansion of the location. Like I talked about Lake Rockaluche. I talked about a mountain for the Vale Beastie. I talked about a village for Smurf Village. I talked about a Pixie Village. I talked about a Sucky Village. I talked about that Blackmore Swamp for nymphs and the underwater civilization in Lake Rockaluche. That is kind of in depth. But like, no matter where you are in the Magic's capital city or Magic's capital, like it's going to try to mimic like how cities or towns or civilizations are in real life and in fantasy settings anyway. You're going to have schools, you're going to have banks, you're going to have homes for where people live, you're going to have parks, you're going to have a cinema, whatever. Maybe you're going to have a farm. Like it's not going to be black and white, just going to be like schools on the places I just mentioned. I hope everyone got the gist of the places I mentioned. Anyway, I want to, point your direction to this hexagonal grid. I used this hexagonal grid to, explain the map of Magix in my last episode. So I want to use this again for Magic's capital city and the schools that are on here. This should give you the visual presentation of the axis. The purple bit should represent the center. The blue bit should represent the west. The yellow bit at the top should represent north. The red one on the right should represent east. And the green one at the bottom, that should represent south. This should give you the idea of where the schools are in the area. I hope this helps a lot. And I guess this is how I'm going to, end the presentation, as well as Professor Ripley is ending this presentation. I don't think I could add anything else to this world building. I think from episode 4 to the current episode, I really put in the effort in the world building. And I guess I could get back to the main plot of the show. But who really knows what happens after this? Anyway, Professor Ripley leaves the assembly hall and the students are off to the break time. And just for your information, after break time they're going to have a music lesson. And I guess this is how I'm going to wrap up this video. Just so you know, as I'm recording this video right now, it's currently Wednesday, 24th of December. I forgot what I said when I started, recording this video. But if I said it, remember that how long it took me to record these videos. Guess what? I feel like I need a break after this. I know the last time I made the episode of my Winx rewrite was like in May, but I can understand why it took me this long to get here. As fun as making these videos are, it can be really exhausting as well as time consuming. Like most of my normal videos don't take this long to record. So who knows, I might take another few months break for this. But I can't make promises. I might get back into this rewrite. There we have it. Anyways, thank you for taking your time of watching this episode of my Winx rewrite. I hope you're excited of seeing my future episodes of this series. Anyway, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and have a lovely day.